Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, YouTubers. This is Jerry Diamond with How to Get Out of Babylon. I thought I'd get a video up. I haven't done one for a while. Sorry for the setting and the bad camera work. Too bad, so sad. I just got to get something out. I did a sound check and it sounds okay. I've got a headset on, a Bluetooth Plantronics, and it's supposed to not have noise interference. And it seems to be pretty good. AC's going like full blast, but oh well. So obviously life is changing, as I've said. I've been saying for 20 years this day was going to come, and people have laughed at me and mocked me. I'm just a messenger. Deal with it. We're playing out things that were prophesied a long time ago, Book of Revelation. And life is going to get increasingly difficult. So some of you know for a fact that you need to get out of where you're at, and you need to do it very soon. Just a ballpark guess, I mean, I have a friend that is on internet, has been on for years, has been a government protester, and et cetera, was unaware what Teotwaki meant. The end of the world as we know it, Teotwaki. And did not know that people needed to get out of the cities by September. I'm just telling you, things are changing. The COVID was just a false flag operation, and it's going to get worse. They're going to have another one. It's going to be total shutdown, lockdown, martial law. So understand that. If you're in the city, get out. Rule number one of survival, I've said this 100 times. The rule number one of survival is get out of the cities. Rule number two of survival is get out of the cities. Rule number three of survival is, guess what? Get out of the cities. Get out there. If you just start driving, just pack your stuff and get out. So here's what I'm going to read some of them. This is something I wrote way back many years ago in a galaxy far away. But I'm just going to read this, and you can read along with me and make some comments here as we go along. In the event of a total breakdown, there has to be enough of a homogeneous, like-minded, or unified population base to care for itself. You must have water, food production, favorable terrain, and many other things. Not too many areas of the country qualify as such. So much death and destruction. Let's see how it goes the next one. So much death and destruction that is to happen will happen because of the survivalist mentality. I have come to see that it is so damaging because it holds out this carrot that you can stay in Babylon until the last second, slopping around with the rest of the turkey farm inmates, and then poofy presto, get out of the cage, dodge the millions of other refugees, lack of food, water, societal veneer of law and order, read marauders, gangsters, Satanists, renegade army groups, dodge the military roadblocks and patrols, evade the starving, hysterical, depraved, and selfish cretins, also on the road with you, with your little family, and make it to paradise unscathed with no deaths, rapes, or other horrors and atrocities. Those survivalist teachers who have propagated that mentality, which is a selfish, destructive, and short-sighted one, will have perhaps done more damage in the final analysis to tens of thousands of families than had they ever put pen to paper or spoken a single word on the airwaves. Perhaps time will tell. Survivalists were the ones leaving bloody fingernail marks on the gopher wood outside the ark. The survivors were inside, warm and dry. In fact, I will not be surprised if it does not turn out to be a very similar case in these days, as it was in the days of Noah. I think I remember reading that somewhere. You know that. One watchword on the ramparts, one watchword on the walls. None falls if Zion lives. None lives if Zion falls. Now there are new paradigms coming to play as we speak. While our utmost hope and victory is in God Almighty, that does not mean that there will not be a lot of lead flying. However, there are other powers and technologies. The U.S. military has many new energy and frequency-driven weapons. It is not beyond imagination that our Yahweh is fully capable of giving us tools, or at least the ability of protecting us from some of those weapons of the enemy. It is happening in the health arena at lightning speed. Why not in the fields of healing, protection, and communication? This is a poem I wrote in the year 2000. It's in my book, How to Get Out of Babylon, which you can get on lulu.com, download it free, or read it there. If you go to webarchive.org, it's the Wayback Machine, and you can find my website that still is intact, and you can read it as it was first done, with different chapter section headings, 8 sections, a preface and an addendum. And You can read it there. Clickable hot links that still work. Really beautiful. I'll put a link for it below. This is a poem I wrote then, part of it. In wrath remember mercy, the prophet Habakkuk pled. Their judgments are our blessings, is how that could be read. Were not 3 million people by plagues from Egypt freed? May we by Yahweh's catastrophes from Babylon us lead. Yea, it would be wise to heed the writing on the wall. Oh, come on. Come on, come back. Stop it. No thanks. Okay, read the thing. So there's a little extra, I got rid of it. Okay, cool. Yea, it would be wise to heed the writing on the wall, relocate our families before the empires fall. We'll learn to grow a garden worth more than lifeless gold, build our new communities and our new borders hold. This poem was prophetic at so many levels, so amazingly prophetic. I mean, things came true that I wrote in poem and in the book. Because in the book I advocated the idea that we should tithe land, set aside 10% of our land for widows, orphans, and strangers and priests. And a few years later, I hadn't read the book. I just was kind of zoned out and working and stuff. And one day I sat down and started reading it, and I was just stunned that it had happened, because I had said, if a man has 1,000 acres and he sets aside 10% of that, there's no skin off his nose. He can't take care of 1,000 acres anyway. And with one or two families living on, or let's say 10 families on 10 families on 10-acre lots, 100 acres, he could have a lot of help to take care of his land. And that had actually happened in the man's own words. I met a man the day after telling my son that, Ian, we don't have to own the land to grow food on it. There's people around here with 1,000 acres that don't know what to do with it. The next day, this man walked into our property looking for his dog, and I loaned him our dog. And he said, my life goal has been to own 1,000 acres, and I'm pretty close to it, 900 and some acres. So within a couple of years or so, our friends were living on 400 of his acres free of charge, pretty much, except for one. He was renting the land, which I told Ian. I said, I worked for a supervisor in Kansas who paid $75 a month to rent a 80-acre farm. He was paying the taxes. Just for the first time ever, I figured out the other day, $41 a month is what this friend pays for this house where I'm sitting at right here, taxes. So, taking care of it as a farm. And so, let's see, money trail. No, the money trail. Lost my train of thought. So, I didn't know that it had happened, and it happened without me even realizing it, having any clue that it had happened. And this man does not set tithing land. He's not setting aside. He's not really. He does help one widow, and he has helped some people, but it's more of a EBT, welfare mentality type of operation. But it's a blessing because he has helped people have been blessed to some degree by it, even though he's not keeping his word as far as giving them the land. But anyway, point being is that I wrote it and it happened. And this here, I wrote this I had no idea that the Ozark Plateau existed when I wrote this. And yet, I made the statement, we'll learn to grow a garden worth more than lifeless gold. That's what happened in Joseph in Egypt. He stored up food and it became gold. Build our new communities and our new borders hold. So I didn't know there were borders, but there are. There are borders around the Ozark Plateau. It is a completely different world from the rest of the world. I've gone over that, so I'm not going to belabor that one. So let me go back here and see if I want to make any other comments. People have no idea. They have all these ideas, and where they came from, I don't know. I got to pause this and come on. Okay. I pulled up something I want to read, but I'm going to just go through this. This is a really long email that I put together many years ago. I mentioned there's a totally different world. This is to somebody I wrote, Chris, so this is on a Preparing But Not Afraid old YouTube, Yahoo group, Christian prepper group that was destroyed by lowlifes. I do think you should move to another country, in fact, to another world. Those were literally Gary's words when he came to visit. He said after about 45 minutes, he said to me, "This is a completely different world from the one I live in. I'm done with it." And next time I saw him, he had moved 90% of his stuff up to Missouri from Texas. Until you at least visit, you have no basis for understanding what you're comparing. And that's what I was just saying earlier. I hear people spouting things that have no basis in reality, common sense, history, science, theology, or any other discipline. They have this idea of what, this part of the country is, and they have no clue, none whatsoever. Even some people who have lived here don't have a clue. And yet, we came here just a few years ago and bought and paid for a farm within a year of buying it. Tell me where else in the country you can do that. We have many friends around us who have like beliefs. It is fairly easy to be debt-free if you're not afraid of working. I do suggest moving to a region which will soon literally be another country, separated out by the terrain, the peoples gathered there, abundant water supplies, streams, ponds, lakes, springs, rainfall, abundant food supply, forests of wood for building and heating, and the innumerable assemblies of remnant believers over which Isaiah 4 says, "There will be a covering of cloud by day from the heat and fire at night." The name of this country or kingdom may change, but it is the OzArk area. I call it the REFUGIUM. I call it Zion. I call it the land of Goshen, whatever you want to call it. OzArkia. I was thinking about the other day. America, OzArkia, Australia. Yeah. We call it Australia. Star, rising star. If you decide to go anywhere else, if you indeed leave where you are at, be sure you have heard from the Father. Many are mentally running around like chickens with their heads cut off in panic and basing ideas on very ill-informed ignorance. Very ill-informed ignorance. There are plenty of books, mine and others below, etc. in the file section. My How to Get Out of Babylon, Geological Assessment of American Survival, Civil War II. Read that book by Tom Chittum. Read that book, people. Very sobering assessment of the future. And I have dealt with this issue many times, looking at messages for the Carolina versus Missouri Post, preparing but not afraid files. I'm trying to get a hold of those files. That is the largest repertoire of my writings in existence. And Yahoo dumped them, and a friend pulled them off the website and she's going to try to put them on a flash drive, a CD for me. Chuck Baldwin, Joel Scouse, and James Rawls, James Como Rawls, also below. What I see very clearly, those who are worried only about themselves, is i.e. saving self as their primary motivation, will make wrong decisions which will adversely affect their chances of survival. In other words, they will basically guarantee that they're not going to survive. You need to seek first the kingdom of Yah and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. As to debt, people survived the Great Depression. There were 3,000 local currencies. I think it was 3,000 local currencies. People grew food. They built homes. That's what we're supposed to do where we are in Babylon, is read Jeremiah 29. Build ye houses, grow ye gardens, and have sons and daughters, and take wives for your sons, and give your daughters to husbands. Okay. We have the wealth in people, land, water, wood to be a nation. Close the borders and be fine. I believe that is exactly what God will basically do. See below. In my estimation, this is presently one of the poorest places on earth. It will soon be, if not the wealthiest. It will be one of, if not the wealthiest. There was a time when Missouri provided food for half the country. That can happen again. There are two things you need: faith in God's plans, and either the ability to know and see the big picture, history, geography, science, etc., or trust someone who has that ability. If we insist on understanding everything, figuring it all out, we are desiring the impossible and likely will make fatal decisions. And I mean fatal decisions. Without those, you do not have the ability to do anything but pray, trust, and obey. And that's fine. That is enough. Just be sure to be certain that what you are going to call God's voice is not your intellect steering you wrong. Heed Chris's point. Let us not forget that it was the Holy Spirit who inspired Solomon to pray, to say, "Without counsel plans fail, but with and many advisors they succeed. In multitude of counselors there is safety." Imoctis, I-M-O-C-T-I-S. Memorize that. Beat that into your brain. You cannot make your own decisions. You cannot make your own decisions. You cannot. As the way my brain works is very strategic, very foresightful, or whatever. I don't think very fast, but I think really slow, but I think really far in advance. As complex as my head is, my brain is, I still ended up taking the advice of a Vietnam vet and going east instead of west into the Rockies. So that's why I'm here where I'm at. I took somebody else's advice. I don't know if those links work there, but they're there. I could post those. Preparing now, right? Chuck Baldwin's moved to Montana. A lot of people are going to die because they thought they were smart enough to think for themselves. Yep. Josh Heston, that's a good, really good magazine, Monthly Magazine. Welcome to the Ozarks' first online magazine. These old hills are home to a people. Succinct, short, sweet, and hard to beat. I like the conclusion, especially the last passage. Life in these hills was hard. Out of the hardness was bred a people defined as stalwart, laconic, distrustful, a people self-reliant. To define the Ozarks by its culture, some would say that these people are microcosms, all that makes the United States what it is, the state of the Ozarks. So he said it there, and it's going to be a nation, a kingdom, whatever you want to call it. I don't care what you call it, I don't care what you say, I don't care what you do. Yahweh is bringing you to pass His will. And I've said before, and I'll say it again, that He is moving His pieces around on His chessboard, the earth, and He owns it. And it's not up to you to tell Him what to do. And He doesn't really care what you think. If you disagree with what I'm saying, if you disagree with what He's doing, it doesn't make any difference. He's still going to do it. It's still going to happen. Period. End of story. I have heard it said in regard to Missouri, but specifically the Plateau, we could close the borders and be just fine. Geographically, demographically, etc. Southwest Missouri, along with a chunk of northwest Arkansas, some of northeast Oklahoma, and southeast Kansas. And you have an extremely cohesive region with borders defined by the terrain, water, ranches, farms, forests, and people who occupy that region. This is a critical thing, occupation. If you occupy a region and you know the land, you have the upper hand. If you know the land, you have the upper hand. There you go. We need to localize food, industry, energy, and currency. If we do that, we may someday see a people and a region with a vast difference in its survival quotient from the rest of the nation. This area has traditionally been considered one of the poorest and roughest areas of the country to make a living. I hold that it is perhaps the wealthiest and certainly the safest place to ride up the storms headed our way. Chuck Baldwin, The American Redoubt, lengthy critique of this idea. I'll tell you, the American Redoubt, yeah, the Northwest, Pacific Northwest around Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming. Cuckoo, 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 cuckoo. I assessed that and wrote an article about it, but I'm not going to even begin to go into that because it's just nuts. In a nutshell, that's what you want. Here's a good statement. So in a nutshell, speaking of nuts, I would expect a crash economy followed by civil unrest, weakened central government, extreme civil unrest, and anarchy, even civil war. Weakened by those events, we will be invaded by Gog, Magog, and many peoples with as depicted in Ezekiel 38. That will about be the end, and then there will be a rebuilding. Okay, so my concern and help in preparation for people is to figure out where and how to go to live between right now and the outlook of the end of the world as we know it. As I see it, very soon as the economy goes, civil unrest, etc. Beyond that point, only God will bring any of us through. Only He knows how it all will play out. I am not one of those who have it all figured out and are going to tell Yahweh how to run the show and what tracks He has to run on. I trust Him for those details. I know it is nearly impossible to imagine, but imagine in your mind, everybody listening to this, reading this, picture in your mind such a total breakdown in economy, society, morals, law enforcement, power, services, sanitation services, health services, food production, storage, delivery, etc. Think medieval times, or at least pioneer days. Combine that with the massive earth changes, and what it comes down to is this: the only places with enough people, with enough of a cohesive basis of common purpose, thought, etc., will be able to maintain enough of the essential infrastructure to survive. While there may be others, I see that the main one will be in the Ozarks, the Ozark Plateau, REFUGIUM. 18 minutes. Major point here, George Washington's vision, which is like an exact dovetail of Ezekiel 38 that I just mentioned. Look up the links there. There's many websites with it on there. He sees the nation, Ezekiel 38 talks about the nation of the people of Israel being invaded and helped in the end in a supernatural way by God and angels. The scenario presumes and mandates that God's people be gathered together in one locale, and then, as the George Washington vision portrays, being driven inland and well nigh overcome. There is nowhere else for people to go in this country except once things really start falling apart, except to be driven inland, and there's only one inland area which has defensible terrain, which is a productive area for wood, with wood for heating and building and water in the form of rainfall, lakes, rivers. The 20 top strings flow 1 million gallons an hour, and wells, homogeneous population base of like-minded people, other than the Ozark Plateau. I will also send a post I did very long, which intended to combat the massive damage being done by the people of God by to the people of God by some of the survivalist leaders who are patting and scratching each other on the back like a bunch of false prophets and telling people to go to Idaho, Montana, etc. Read what you can of all this. I know it a lot. It's to some degree negative, but you're already, this is written to a friend of mine, Carol, the widow that started this whole thing. But since you are already nutted up, very cute phrase, I am not thinking it will be too extreme for you. All right, so I'm getting to, let's repeat my gorilla, my duct tape and Elmer's glue statement. Repeat. That's a good point. Do you think God knows less of war than the pagan writer Sun Tzu, The Art of War? Do you think he will wage a war with all of his forces in view? Not. He knows what he's doing. He's been planning this for a long time. He's even told everybody what he's going to do, how it's going to play out. And the forces of evil, everybody's all so scared of, are doing exactly what he told them to do. Oh, they're going to be having a mark of the beast, and guillotine, and they're going to cut our heads off. Duh. Read the book of Revelation. Don't be stupid. We'll never last the coming wrath unless our storage food abound, and that is meat upon the hoof and crops within the ground. It is not just for ours, for no more from our storage we'll have to draw. We our brothers keepers be, thus obeying Bible law. Would Joseph have been blessed of God with an attitude like that? See the world starve to death while only the rich grew fat? But no, in blessing all the world he received, he reached his own family too. Thus saved all Israel from death and received the double birthright too. Come on, where's my gorilla statement? Cob houses, baby. Satanic holidays. Should be able to read that, screenshot it. For those that want to go to another country, don't count God out of the game so soon and cut and run from the greatest display of glory and victory and military might ever masterminded on the entire face of this planet in all of mankind's history. Psalm 83 is a depiction of King David, surprised and surrounded on all sides, yet being victorious. That psalm is a prophecy of what you have the privilege and opportunity to be a front row witness of. Just do it from a safe perspective. The OzArk Plateau. Deeds are about to be done which before have never been seen by those who know their God, who are steadfast, strong, and serene. Swamp Girl, I found that, and that's the only stanza I have of it. Kansas was boot camp for Missouri. Cumberland Plateau. No. Bad decision. Everywhere east of the Mississippi is going to be zombie apocalypse. 2/3 of the United States population lives east of the Mississippi, East Coast. Concentrate on the East Coast. Massive population, and they're all going to be zombified by the COVID vaccine and whatever. This is a person that worked at the Pentagon. I can't answer for Jerry, and he's already answered for himself anyway, but I can let you in on my thought process in choosing Missouri. First, I knocked out all coastal states. Any state with a coastline, don't be there. Get out of there. Global warming will cause sea levels to rise. Okay, whatever. Not sure who this was. considered Arkansas, but seriously couldn't see living in the state that spawned Bill Clinton. Yeah, Arkansas is little Chicago. Kanukistan. Kanukistan. Good statement. Kanukistan. I remember that one. Okay, I'm not finding my gorilla coat. Yeah, come on. That's pretty irritating. I'm wasting time here. Alright, well, sorry about this. I'm gonna flip it, flop it, flip it, and flop it. Okay, sorry. Just close your eyes while I'm doing this. I know it's making me seasick right as I'm doing it. That's a good statement there. Okay, I'm going to sign off here. I'm sorry about all the scrolling. Basically, my statement is that where in the world the mentality, the survivalist and prepping mentality comes from, and so much of it is based on, selfishness. We got to stock up enough food for our family, us four and no more. Another famous survivalist attitude is, talking about people, human beings as long pork. So gross, so stupid, so sick, so perverted, so evil. And shoot first and ask questions later. And one of the biggest ones, should I feed him or should I eat him? Sick, sick, sick. So my question is, where did that mentality come from? It's like they're all reading from the same sheet of music. The problem is all these survivalist writers, James Wesley Rawls and Joel Skousen and all these Chuck Baldwins and everybody, all these great leaders, vaunted leaders who pat each other on the back like sycophants. They're each other's little disciples. But where do they get their ideas from? I don't know. I'd like to figure that out. But it's like they all are reading from the same sheet of music. Everybody that's out there with the mentality, prepper mentality, survivalist mentality, are reading from the same sheet of music. The problem is that the sheet of music was run through a paper shredder and pieced back together by an arthritic chimpanzee using a random mix of Elmer's glue and duct tape. That's my statement on the whole prepper and survivalist mentality. It's a shredded, completely hopeless, idiotic mentality. And I'm saying that because unless we have a group of people in an area that can support each other and help each other, nobody's going to make it. Nobody's going to make it. And that means we have to love each other and stand with each other and, stand behind each other and trade and barter and help and give. Love is the only thing that's going to make it happen. You have enough love to see this happen. It's exactly what Messiah said. By this shall all men know that you are my disciples, that you have love one for another. And until that happens on this earth, there will be no kingdom. But that will bring about the kingdom. I believe it will do that. That's what I saw in my vision. It was real. It was real to me. And I believe it is real. And I believe, imagine that picture, that area where people are building homes for other people that they may never meet. Picture that in your mind. Hold it in your mind. The beauty and people sharing food and blessing each other with, can I help you wash dishes? Can I do this? Can I help you plant the garden? Can I do this? Helping each other. That's what's going to make it all work. Selfishness is not going to make it work at all. So, all right, I'm going to get out of here and take a break. Okay, thank you. This is Jerry Diamond. If you are listening to this, you are the remnant. I'm talking to you. Yeah, I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you right there. Look at me. Look me in the eyes. If you are listening to this, you are the remnant. All right. Good night. Yahweh bless and keep you and make his face shine upon you and give you peace. May he lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Guard you and keep you as you travel. Feed and water and keep you safe from dashing your foot against a stone or a rock or whatever on the highway, nails. All right. Good night.